Hello neighbor, this is Curt with eTrailer, and today we're going to take a look at the Thule TracRac SR on our 2025 Chevy Silverado 2500. Now if you've had any experience with a rack like this or with this rack particular, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. We love to take your stories and your questions and share those with other neighbors to help them make the best decision for themselves. Now this particular ladder rack, while it can be used for sports and recreation, is definitely intended to be used on a work truck. With the cantilever extension, as you can see, we've got a pretty good sized ladder up here. It's going to get that extra support there over the cab, and at a 1,250 pound weight capacity, this thing can carry lumber and all sorts of equipment that you might need. Some other things that could help us out with that are going to be the tie downs that are located on each one of the towers. You are going to get a total of 4 load stops, so you could use those in any which way you need to, and extra load stops are available right here at etrailer.com as well. But the biggest feature of this is that these bars are adjustable in and out against each other. You can shorten and lengthen them. And I think on a truck with an 8-foot bed like this one, I think that's a perfect application. Now, if I've got something that needs to go in the truck bed that's taller, an appliance, a refrigerator or something, nobody wants to mess with this bar in the back and getting it in and out. So I'll be able to loosen these knobs, slide this set of bars all the way forward, and then we'll have all the space behind it to be able to load whatever we need to back here. But one of the most impressive things about it is that the installation really isn't all that difficult. So stick around and we're going to show you exactly how we got this on our Silverado. So in order to show you the installation, we're going to be concentrating here first on our rails. We have put on our driver's side rail already. We're going to show you how we did that by putting on the passenger rail. It's really the same process, just mirrored. So we've got our rail here across our tailgate. We just wanted to prop it up somewhere nice, keep the bottom exposed, because we will need to drop these bolts through and have them threaded up with some blocks underneath and attachments. So I'm going to take one of our plastic washers and our longer bolt. I am going to drop it into the appropriate hole. Now, there are several drilled holes in the tailgate end of the rail, depending on what year, make, and model of vehicle you have. For ours, it's going to be this hole right here. I'm just going to kind of maintain control of it while I lightly thread on this block attachment. Now, I don't want to tighten this up very much. I'm really just trying to get it on here and catch so that we could drop it into our stake pockets. Now, for the cab end of our rail, it's going to be a little bit of a different process, but still pretty similar. You're going to use one of these rubber blocks, this kind of rectangular, really it's kind of a rectangular nut that we're going to end up putting at the end of another one of our longer bolts with the plastic washer. So the first thing we'll do is apply our washer. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we get it in the appropriate hole, which is going to be this one right here. And once we thread that through, we're going to have our block here that we're also going to thread it through. And we're going to drop that all the way down, and at this point, we're going to thread on our square washer here. And we're really just lightly threading this. We only want to get it to where it just comes up against that rubber block at the bottom there. Once we get it threaded on enough to touch with that, again, not squeezing it, just touching it, we're going to repeat this same process on the middle set of holes in the middle of our rail, and then we'll be ready to drop it into our stake pockets. So we've got all of our attachments on our rail. Now we're just going to go ahead and, starting at the cab end, just kind of drop them into our stake pockets. Now the awkward one is going to be the one that's back here by the tailgate. We want to get that all the way dropped in, and we're just going to take our included fitting tool here. And what we really need to do is rotate this block around right down here until we get that outer bolt hole lined up. And you can tighten and loosen this bolt if you need it a little higher or a little lower. But essentially, we just want to make sure we get access to that bolt hole. And from there, we're going to get this attached in. From here, since we've got this in a good spot, we have access with our bolt. We're going to go ahead and take our steel washer, and we're going to take the shorter bolt. We're going to go ahead and just very carefully, like I said, this could be a little bit awkward to get this bolt started really good. We're going to try to get that started going in there, and then we're going to hand tighten it down. We're not going to completely tighten down anything yet. So before we go ahead and tighten everything down, it is a good idea to take some kind of object that's long enough and definitely straight enough, and we just want to kind of check our leveling. Now, we've already gone over our driver's side and everything's looking good over there, but one thing you may notice is that there's a little bit of a gap under here. And that can change a little bit as we tighten it down, but that is enough of a gap that I'm going to want to use some of these included shims. As a matter of fact, that's going to slide right in there almost perfectly, so I do think that's going to solve our problem. So we're trying to add just a little more height on the outer end of our rail. What we have found is probably the best method of doing this is to, when you peel the back off of this, go ahead and apply it on with the sticky side up. That is going to allow us to kind of, maneuver it a little bit better. And not only that, but if the day ever comes where you were looking to remove your rails, if that day ever comes, the shims are going to go with your rack rather than with your truck bed. So we're going to go ahead and use 3 of these under the different mounting points that we have here. And that should level us out just to ensure that our rack is going to slide the way that we want it to slide. So we'll do just like we did there on the other 2 mounting points before we continue on. The last thing, second to last thing we're going to want to do is we're going to need to torque down our 3 mounting points. Make sure you pay close attention to the instructions. The 3 mounting points up here above the rail will have a different torque spec than the side bolt did down here by the tailgate. So pay close attention to your instructions and go ahead and get all of those torqued down at this point. Now, there are going to be 2 small bolts that we put at the end of our rails. This is to stop our rack from sliding beyond this point. Put one in there. We're going to grab another one and just put it in right here. Now, we'll have a total of 8 of these little screws, but we don't want to put the tailgate ones on until we have our rack set up. These are what's going to allow it to slide on and off. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take some of our plastic plugs that we have here, and we're going to drop and pop these into each open hole here at the top of the rail. And that is, of course, going to do the job of basically keeping any kind of moisture or anything out of within our rails, and just give it a little bit of extra protection against that kind of corrosion. But we're going to continue to do that all the way down the rail, and once we have these all popped in, our rails are installed and we can move on to our rack. Now, as we're going to continue with our rack assembly, one of the first things that we're going to need to do is change out the head of this. You need to grab one of the ones that came in your Cantilever box in that particular kit, and we're going to be replacing this head with this head. As far as for the first section of the rack, the one that we're going to be installing on the rails first, that will generally live closest to the cab. So we're going to go ahead and loosen it up through these bolts here and reattach it with the same bolt. You just want to make sure you get the one that is corresponding to this replacement. So pay attention to, the angle of this hole at the bottom and all that, just to make sure you're putting the right head on the right arm. Now, as we continue to assemble our crossbars, what we're going to do is take one of those square nuts on one of our shorter bolts, insert them into these slots here, and what they'll create for us is kind of like a T-slot that we're going to be able to slide and then tighten under our crossbar. So I'm going to lift our crossbar here into place. This is really helpful if you've got a friend here to assist you like I do today. And we're just going to get that fed in through there, just like so. May need to loosen this one just a hair. There, it went in very nicely just now. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and lift it into position. I am going to get a good handle on those kind of T-slot bolts that we had there just to make sure they don't shift on us. and we're going to lift it into place, and we're going to try to get this running here on our outer track. Now, just for some more adjustability, we did not tighten these down yet. We want to make sure that we're going to get a good slide here, even here. There we go. Looking nice. Now that we know that our spacing is good across, we're going to take a few measurements, make sure we have the same amount of overhang on each side, and go ahead and get this tightened down. So now we're going to continue with our cantilever attachment, and I am orienting this in a way, this is the passenger side. We do have the arm on for our driver's side already. We're going to need to orient this in a way that the hollow part of this is facing the inside, and the bracket that we're attaching to it, we want to make sure that the bolt holes will be facing downward, so it'll attach just like this. So I'm going to take my bolts, a 7/32 Allen key, and I'm going to go ahead and hand thread these in. I'm going to hand tighten them down a little bit before we get to torquing them. But first, I just want to get them set. Always a good idea to put it on in a star pattern, and when we tighten and torque, we definitely want to do it in a star pattern. And the instructions are going to tell you exactly which pattern they recommend. So just follow along. It'll be really easy to figure out exactly how they want you to get this put together. Now that we have all 6 of our bolts torqued down, we're going to go ahead and attach it up here onto our crossbar. As you can see, the cutout here in this arm is the same kind of shape as our crossbar. And we're going to go ahead and get this up and into place. Next, because we had these lined up correctly here and here, we're going to go ahead and run these bolts straight up and through there and attach them to our crossbar. So to get our crossbar in place, we simply had to pop this in between these 2 sections here. And now what we're going to do is get our bolt attachment threaded through the bottom. You're going to have a couple of different bolts to work in a T-slot. For the bottom, we're going to be working with these, which will have more of a rounded rectangle shape. We'll put them right here in this opening and slide it on down. We'll have 2 bolts on each side on the bottom. One of the bolts is going to go into this slotted section here coming from our arm. On the top of the crossbar, we're going to have this square black bolt. That's going to go in at the top, same type of T-slot. However, there's only 2 of these total up at the top. We'll have one of these coming over to each side. So we're going to go ahead and take our washer and our nut here. We're going to get that tightened on. I'm going to leave it slightly loose so we can still maneuver and make sure that our crossbar overhang is even. For right now, we're going to get that in place. The smaller nut is going to go up here on the top on our black bolt, and we're going to head and do the same, get that threaded down into place. We're going to repeat the same process over on our passenger side. So the next thing we're going to be getting into place is our support arm, which is going to be connected with a bolt through here to right here. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. So we're just going to get these ratcheted down, and then we're going to end up torquing them to spec according to the instructions. Okay, so now we've got it all assembled. We've got it moved all the way forward into position. I will note, however, that it is a little easier to slide this. If you could take a little bit of the weight off the cantilever in the front, it does help it to slide quite a bit easier. Now, the only things we have left to do on this are some very small details. We've got our support bracket that's going to bolt on very simply, along with our tie downs and our tightening knob here to keep our rack in place. Once all of those go in, everything is all set on here. We do still have our tailgate bar to also put on. However, I will tell you that it is as simple as anything. All these extra pieces and changing out the heads here that we had to do for the front bar, we do not have to do for the second bar. It's simply going to be attaching the bar as we did here without changing the head of it out. So it's actually even easier to do the second bar, but now we're going to get all these small details done and we're going to be ready to load up. And don't forget, after you get your second set of bars up and on here, definitely put in these stopper bolts. This is going to keep them from sliding off of the back and make sure they stay up here on our rails. Just make sure that before you take off anywhere, you get these installed. So that's a look at the Thule TracRac SR on our 2025 Chevy Silverado 2500. I'm Curt with eTrailer. Thanks for stopping by.